guys, and welcome back to my channel. I am super excited for today's video because it is my fourth bullet journal flip through. So as you guys have seen in past videos, this guy has been my bullet journal for the past 5 months. I was able to get April through August in here, and we'll see how it goes now that I'm back in the school year, if I stay on like a 4-month or a 5-month range in my journal. But this guy was an oddity. I actually got 5 months in here, and you can tell the spine has gotten a little bit beat up because of all the use, and the back is like super dirty. But you know what? He's well loved. Okay, so let's get started. So if you saw my migration video way back at the end of March, I guess it would have been, you will know that when I set up my new bullet journal, I just did my name and my Sunshine and Stationery email, and I didn't decorate. And you know what? I never got around to it. Honestly, it's just not that important. I don't really look in this section very much, so I just never really bothered to do anything with it. You know, just kind of the way it goes. So with my index, as always, I do use my index. I have kept with my month level stuff. I do a main category for the actual month and the range of pages that are in that month, and then I actually do sort of an indent under and all of the collections that I like to index on the bottom here. I believe it was in my last bullet journal, I started doing a little color code to remind myself, because I do color code on the edge of my pages here. So I just do a little color code, and I actually write in the number of the Tombow colors. So April was 772, May was 526, June was 296, July was 985, and August was 905. So that way I just kind of have a little reminder. I mean, I keep that pen out, but if in the future I want to go back and reuse those colors, I might not necessarily remember which ones they were, so I like to just kind of pencil it in. One of the other things that I started doing in this journal was to have a guideline up here of the different colors. I don't really remember why I started that, because you can see it on there, but I kind of liked having it because when you close this, you could actually kind of see, so I can kind of visually see how many months are in there. I don't know, I just kind of did it. Let's see, index otherwise is pretty standard. I do have a couple of instances of page threading in here, so this is something that I've mentioned in a couple of videos now. Kim from Tiny Ray of Sunshine has this amazing article on notebook threading, page threading, like all kinds of different threading, but I tend to use page threading a lot, so that if I have, for example, a similar tracker that I need to make a new one of, or if I have overflow from a collection, what I do is I make a little note in my index. So I have the first page that it was on, so page 128 for this one. This was my library and overdrive tracker. I have page 128 on this one, and then I do a little dot, and then I do the second page. And as I flip through, I'll show you down at the bottom of the pages where I mark in there so that I can easily flip back and forth between those pages. Otherwise, I have, oops, here we go. So I have a couple of collections that were in the back of my journal, and I just kind of started them the last page and worked my way up. Because I wanted to index them, but I wasn't sure how much space I would need for August. And actually, this is the first time, it's been a while since I've actually used this much of my index. So that was kind of cool to see it almost fill up at the end of this journal. So that's why there's this gap over here. And I had 2 collections that I was still kind of, that I wanted to archive. There might be others that I archive, but there were 2 main ones that had information that I wasn't going to migrate to a new journal, but that I still wanted to be able to find. So I just have the little pencil arrows here, and I'll decide how I'm going to deal with that later. I did write in gel pen in this journal, so I probably won't highlight because that's going to smear it. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. Yeah, going to kind of play it by ear, but at least they're marked on here. Next up is my year at a glance. So I did do 2017, the entire calendar. It's really hard to see, but I used the light gray Staedtler Tri Plus fine liner to do the weeks. So I actually do label the number of the week throughout the year. And then I have just the days and then the actual numbers in here. So that's why it looks kind of smudgy, but they are actually little numbers that I use when I do my weeklies, for example. I like to label the week, so I like to have them directly on my year at a glance. Next up, I have my Calendex and future log. So normally I get 4 months in a journal, which is why I do a 4-month Calendex, and I've started doing a 4-month future log so that when I'm ready to migrate into the next journal, I have basically the months I expect to have in my next journal already there. So these dates would go in my new Calendex. Obviously, this time around, that was kind of weird because I got August in here, so I only had the next 3 months, but I'm doing it again the same way again because overall the system works pretty well for me. Again, if you guys don't know, the Calendex was invented by Eddy. There is an article on the Bullet Journal blog that I will link down below that explains the system and how it works. I find it really useful, and I have adapted certain things to suit my kind of standards. So for example, I have a color that I use for birthdays that I just kind of write the names sideways on there. If I do a standard Calendex, I have the number inside the box of color, and that just refers to the page number that has the information for that particular event. And I do recurring tasks by using little initials just to kind of keep track for myself. And then I do these lines here. Yellow is for trips, and then I have other ones for work. So if something takes a while, but I don't necessarily need to have that information on there, I'll just do a line so I don't use up as much space, just so I can kind of visually see when I have things going on. Next, I have my April through July goals, and this is actually the first instance of page threading in here because I decided to do a kind of mid-year update, and I ended up doing my July through September goals, I think is what it is. We'll see later. So I have, this is on page 4, and I threaded it with page 129. So on page 129, you'll see the same dot and the number 4 they refer back to each other. So these were just the goals that I had taken from my 52 goals in 52 weeks. The main spread for that lives in my collection bullet journal. So in order to not forget about goals, I wanted to pull some that I thought I would be able to do in this range of months and keep track of them on here. Once I would cross them off, I would periodically go in and update everything in my collection bullet journal so that everything was kind of up to date. What I also have on here, I have little check marks, and you'll see these kind of throughout my journal on certain spreads. This is what I use for either to mark that the collection is done. So this one was one that I actually did a new version later on in my journal. So once I migrated everything, I checked it off. I also use it for when I'm migrating to a new journal. Once I've dealt with a spread, I check it off also just so I know that I don't have to worry about that anymore and that it is now someplace else. So this is I'm done with this spread. I don't need to do anything with it anymore. We're good to go. I don't do this for weeklies or dailies, however. I know there are some people that once they have checked off all of the tasks on a page, they'll mark that page as complete. And I don't actually do that because I just migrate things to the next page if I still have open tasks or whatever. So it doesn't really bother me to have that. I only use this for collections. Next up is the financial tracker. Once again, I have covered all of my information, but I have plenty of videos about my financial tracker, about how I budget and all that kind of stuff. So pretty standard. Next up is the wish list. You'll notice that I actually did not check off all of the tasks, and I did check off at the bottom of the page. And this is because I like to leave this as what was actually purchased or crossed off when I was in this journal. And when I migrate to a new journal, I do sit down and go through and kind of rethink, do I still want this thing? Do I not? But I leave my current wish list as it is. I hope that made sense. So basically the new wish list in my new bullet journal is shorter than this. There are certain things that did not make the cut, but this wish list, I didn't go ahead and cross off everything just because I like to have kind of a record of what I actually got while I was in this bullet journal. Next up is Nespresso. So this is a pretty simple spread that I have. So I have the date, where I got my Nespresso, because I used to also buy some from the regular grocery store. I have how many sleeves I got, which is how many capsules total, and then the cost. So what I started doing is I actually have in my home bullet journal an overall Nespresso tracker, and I have two different sections. So I have one section that tracks when I buy capsules and how often, so I can kind of see patterns with how frequently I'm going. And I have a second section that is how much I spend per month on espresso. So you'll see over here, these check marks mean that I have filled in both of those things for that particular line. So for example, I'll fill in when I buy capsules, but I'll wait until the end of the month before I move over the cost. So that I know if for some reason I go twice in a month, I can move that information over there. And then once I've migrated this information, then I will check it off. And then the last thing on this page is my waiting on tracker. So these are just, orders or information I'm waiting on, which is different than for here. I actually have a waiting on section down here, and this is specifically for financial stuff. So this is for anything that's not financial. It will go on this waiting on thing. Usually it's purchases, like packages that I'm waiting for, just because I don't order things very often. So I like to have a record of how long it's taken to get to me and all that kind of stuff. Then we have my Instagram and my YouTube trackers. The YouTube, I actually have this ideas and do's section. I never used it. It's not in my new bullet journal. I basically just use it as a tracker because I keep track of this stuff elsewhere. And then we get into April. So April was my 1 year bujo-versary, if you will. So it was 1 year using the bullet journal system. So I wanted to have a nice pretty intro page and all of that. I have been doing more watercolor in my bullet journal, and I really like it. It's a lot of fun to do. Just definitely don't use too much water on there. Otherwise it takes forever to dry and it gets the paper like super wrinkly and yeah, but otherwise it's really fun. Let's see, what can I say about April? So I did try out a memory log in April, where I basically just wrote one line with quick information about what I did that day, super short, standard monthly. So I have my mini calendar, my tasks for April and upcoming tasks for May. I did do a 2-page gratitude because I wanted to letter, and I like some of it. This particular lettering, this bugs me, and it's like front and center. But the rest of it, I really do like how it turned out. And it was nice having plenty of space because I like to letter with Tombows, and it's a much bigger brush, so I tend to write bigger. Yeah, but you can see I kind of did all different kinds of pens and trying different styles of writing and that kind of stuff. Reading tracker and, reading list and tracker. So this was the month I actually did the sunrise and sunset because this was getting into summer, the summer schedule. And so by the end of the month, the sun was out really, really late and it rose pretty early in the morning. So that was kind of a fun thing to kind of check in on every day when I filled in my tracker. Weeklies. So this was still at the end of my work year. My work schedule is kind of strange, so I was still using my 2-page dailies, and I was doing very simple headers. This was also when I started doing collections for mini collections to keep track of ongoing tasks. So for example, Happy Mail I needed to respond to, collections I wanted to make in either this journal or my collection bullet journal, different information, brain dump, emails, things I wanted to do for YouTube, university. This was a very big collection kind of month. And then I would just continue on with my dailies. I do have a couple of Calendex things here. Oops. So this is a travel/project page. This one I actually didn't need a ton of information for. So this is my packing list. I usually give my packing list a full page, but I was able to squeeze it in pretty compactly on the bottom here. But I just had when, where, and then train information for how I was getting there. Still with the 2-page weekly, still with the very simple headers. This was before my best friend came to visit, while she was here. So I wanted to have all of the days that she was here so we could kind of plan out different events, travel information, things I had to do the upcoming week because I was still in university, and things to do in different places that we were going to go to. And then dailies, and I obviously had to start a post-vacation brain dump because I had a lot of stuff that I needed to do once she left and I got back to school and work and that kind of stuff. I also did this little collection. This was kind of fun. So when we were chatting, if we talked about, oh yeah, I love making this for dinner or whatever, I made a little collection so that I could write down simple recipes in here to try. You can see I tried 2 of them, and I have not actually tried these 2 yet, but I migrated these 2 into my collection bullet journal to try later so that I don't have to worry about having this page remembering this page anymore. So you can see I did check him off at the bottom. Okay, this was my 30-day impulse buy challenge. So the rule was to not purchase anything that was a one use. So for example, like going out for coffee, going out for food, that kind of stuff. If there was something that I saw that I really wanted, I had to sit on it for 3 days before I could actually buy it. And then I added a rule of no stationery for myself. And I never actually filled this in. Whoops. But I did fairly well. I had a little hiccup here and I messed up on this one day, but overall it actually, it was a really good challenge for me. I should probably do it again because I tend to be really bad about the whole impulse purchase thing. So yeah, oh well. This was a little mini collection here. Sometimes what I would do is I actually color code the collection titles. So anything that I had going back, let's see if I can find that page. Oops. Here. So anything that was here, these gray ones were just general collections. This was, I think I just did it that color because this blue was my university color. So I kind of tried to color code collections if they had to do with a specific aspect of work or university so that I could easily see what it had to do, like what it dealt with. Then I had a blank page, so I just did a quick little, it's gonna be May, because one of my old bosses always did that on our calendar at work, and I couldn't let it go by without acknowledging. May, I don't love this lettering, but hey, you win some, you lose some. So in May, I had standard calendar set up for my monthly, and then instead of having a memory log, I did one positive thing each day, and I started doing snippets, which were a couple of lines about my day, things that happened, things I did, what have you. So I kind of extended the memory log to do a little bit of journaling, and I really liked doing this, but it did take a bit of time, a bit more than I have right now, but it was really nice to do this for a couple of months. Then reading, tracker, and habits. So I started doing habits, specific things I wanted to focus on, and then some money goals that I had in mind because I was really trying to work on my budget. Actually, I still am, but I had these 3 different sections now on my one tracker page. And again, you'll see gray was for just general collections. Okay, weekly, dailies, extra page. I think this is probably the messiest weekly out of all of them. Every time I look at this page, I just hate my handwriting on it. But you know what? It happens. Some days you don't have good handwriting weeks. Or yeah, some weeks you don't have good handwriting. At least I don't. This one, my parents were actually in town, so I did not need a lot of space on my daily. So I was actually able to fit my entire week on one spread, which was crazy. Okay. Pretty standard. I had a couple of big things happening on this day, so I ended up just writing in my daily like I used to. And you'll see that every once in a while I do still have almost a full page daily. I don't do them like my old dailies where I journal and letter and all that kind of stuff in the blank space, but some days I do still have a ton of tasks that I want to get through. To be honest, sometimes I treat my dailies like a brain dump if I've got a lot on my mind, and I'll start doing it without realizing without realizing that maybe I should just make a brain dump, but oh well. I had an extra spread. I think I probably left a page and then I set up my next weekly and I had an extra spread. So I went ahead and did a little bit of lettering and some watercoloring in here. And this was when I transitioned to the one page weeklies. This was basically the end of my work schedule for the summer because I'm off in the summer. And so I don't need as much space to plan and all that kind of stuff. So in order to not have a huge two-page daily that I don't use all the space for, I just did a one page, and I really like this this setup. It worked really well for me this summer. Brain dump, various collection, Calendex, all that kind of fun stuff. I had a lot of empty space at the bottom of this page, so I did a little drawing with microns, and then I watercolored in. And this, I accidentally wrote Sunday. So I just skipped down, wrote Saturday, and then I went back in with Distress ink and then stamped over it just to kind of block my mistake, basically. Travel page, and we're into June. So June, I decided to go back to doing gratitude because I hadn't done gratitude the last month. But rather than doing 2 full pages for gratitude, I gave myself 1 page, and I really like how this looks. I used up all of the space. I was still able to do the tombos a little bit, but it wasn't quite as like big and spread out and unwieldy. So if I ever do like a lettered gratitude like this, I think I will stick to 1 page because that really works for me. I did do the snippets again. I really did enjoy doing these snippets. It was a nice little reminder of my day to kind of sit down either at the end of the day or the very next morning when I'm going through my morning routine to just write a couple lines about what happened. It was really nice. So still with the reading, tracker, habits, and money goals. I started doing fancier headers. Now that I wasn't working, I had a little bit more free time, so I went back to doing some fancier headers. These were actually inspired by Kayla of Planning with Kay. She has these she was doing these really pretty with a lighter writing and then with a darker shadow. So I actually used mild liners to write the day and then did my shading with Inkjoy gel pens. So that was a kind of fun effect. Plan with me challenge. I should have done this at the beginning of the month, but I didn't decide that I was going to do it until like a day or 2 later, and so I just did it on the next open page. This was for the Plan with Me challenge. It was 20 facts about me. So I actually was tagged in this, and then the first one was greetings, so I just did it for that particular prompt. I had some extra space and I was trying to get better at lettering with a water brush, so I did some practicing in here. Oops, and this was actually for the Plan With Me challenge as well, my signifiers. And this was when I started doing more watercoloring, and I started doing watercolored daily headers to practice my lettering skills with a water brush pen. This was for Plan With Me challenge, another collection for a job I had to work at, a summer camp I was working. Had to squeeze in Calendex right there because I didn't really have room anywhere else. I really liked how these ones came out. So I have been doing for a while where I kind of pick a color for my weekly and I stick with it. These were just random ones, so I decided to watercolor the headers for my little collection. So for some reason was like green, blue, perfect. But I have been doing where I pick kind of a color. So these ones, if you look at this week, I did yellow for the week. And I started out with kind of yellow and orange. And so I did variations of yellow and orange for all of my dailies. And I had a blank page, so I just did a little bit of lettering. This was with a Tombow. This was my blue week. This was actually all done in watercolor. And it was kind of a disaster in some ways because the watercolor transferred a little bit. But otherwise, I like the look of it. The only problem is because the watercolor takes longer to dry, it was not as fast or as portable for me to do this. Like if I need to set up my daily, I needed to do it the night before because in the morning, I had to let it dry before I could really do anything with it. So I did this, I think, 1 week, and then I went back to normal and every once in a while doing watercolor in my dailies. I knew I wasn't going to have a lot going on for the weekend, so I actually just decided to cram Saturday and Sunday right here, which is why they're like really close together. Oops. This was a camp that I worked, so I did my vacation weekly where I give a lot of space for each daily because I kind of keep a schedule of what's going on, and then I have fewer boxes for other things. So I have tasks the upcoming week, any prep that I have to do, and things to do for home. And then I just journaled. So this was a camp that I worked for 5 days. So I journaled for 5 days, and then I went back to my dailies on the weekend. Have my summer bucket list, and you will notice that I only got through one thing. I'm actually almost-ish done. I'm 75% of the way through, maybe actually 80% at this point, through a book in Spanish. So I'm working on it, but I actually couldn't check it off. I knew this was going to be way too much, but I was working on a lot of these things. So I was working on at least these things this summer. I just didn't actually finish most of them. Oh well. This was my first library loan spread. So as I mentioned when we were talking about my index, I do have page threading here. So I have page 128 and it's threaded with page 183. And because I had a lot of stuff going on here, once I finished everything, I did check off the page at the bottom. This was also page threaded with page 4, so my April through September goals, or April through July goals, I changed and did July through September goals. And then this page, I didn't cross off things I didn't actually do, but once I migrated it into my new bullet journal, I checked off at the bottom of the page. July. So July I decided to do in Spanish because I wanted to practice some of my languages over the summer. And so I just picked July for Spanish. Don't really know why, but I did this kind of orangey look because summer. Standard monthly, did the gratitude again, and I attempted to do the majority of it in Spanish. There are a couple of things that are in French and a couple of names, obviously, that are just the names, but for the most part, I did it all in Spanish. Snippets, again, in Spanish. This was to get me to practice writing in Spanish because I haven't done that in a while. Definitely took longer to do than in English because sometimes I realized that I didn't remember the word or the phrase that I wanted to use and I had to figure out a different way to do it. But overall, it was really good practice for me. Reading, tracker, habits, goals, same as normal. I went to visit family over the summer, so I did a planning spread for my trip. So flights, trains, tasks, things to do in the US, and then these were various things I wanted to shop for while I was there, and I had my packing list. I also have my language spread, which I did have somebody comment before, oh, well, why don't you want to learn this one language? I will say it again. It is not that I don't actually want to learn the language. These were the categories that I was given for the activity that I was doing, but honestly, it's just more of a priority list. Higher priority, lower priority. Please don't be offended if I don't have the language that you speak on this side. That doesn't mean that I don't want to learn it. It just means that I kind of have to prioritize my time and my brain capacity, and I just can't learn all the languages, unfortunately. I wish I could. Then back to a one-page weekly because I didn't have as much going on anymore. And oops, this one. I did not even remember, I didn't even realize that I wrote this in English until somebody pointed it out to me on Instagram. Just my brain didn't even register. But it's kind of funny because I did it on the 4th of July, which is Independence Day in the United States. So kind of fitting that I did have it in English for that particular day, but whatever. So standard dailies. I went back to doing lettering with my tombos. See, this was Bastille Day in France, 14th of July. This was a trip prep, so this was a list for the things that I wanted to do before I went to the United States. And I just kind of picked a random way to organize it, but this was a very useful spread for me before I left. And then I did have, my travel was at the end of the week, so I went ahead and I just did a normal one-page weekly here. I had my massive summer projects brain dump. I was working on, I believe, I don't remember if this came from doing morning pages, no, it came from morning pages, I think, where I was just thinking about all the things that I wanted to work on, and so I finally just sat down and made a brain dump with all of the information. And then I did not cross everything off. I basically left it as, what did I actually start on or finish while I was in this bullet journal, and then I took all of the information and I then checked off the pages, but left I didn't actually migrate the tasks, and a lot of this information went into the 101 goals in 1,001 days spread that I made up in my collection bullet journal. So I do still have these on lists. They are just not living on here anymore. Okay. I had a lot of extra page on Sunday, and I had recently gotten a new stamp, so I just kind of played around with the stamp. I did a Christmas. I might be going back to visit family for Christmas, so I wanted to start a little spread about things to do and things to get while I was there. I actually did migrate this into my new bullet journal, so that's why it's pretty blank. Then this was while I was in the United States. I did my same travel weekly or vacation weekly, whatever you want to call it, where I give more room for the days, and then I have smaller boxes for the upcoming week. This was for KonMari. I never actually used this one, and tasks. And not very much going on. I was in the US. I didn't actually journal because I was trying to do morning pages, and so I figured that with how busy I get when I'm visiting family, I didn't want to have to do both. I am closing this one. This is information that is not going to be shared quite yet on the internet. I had to make a new financial spread for August because this was the 5th month, and my financial spread at the beginning of my journal is only for 4, so I had to do that. This was my post-trip brain dump. And August. So August I did in Italian. I did have a couple of errors in here that I eventually went back and fixed, but everything, at least all of my headers are in Italian, so monthly, and then I decided to do a month level email and happy mail list because I tend to not go through these collections very quickly. So it's kind of annoying to have them lost in the middle of dailies or whatever, so I just stuck it up front. And then I went back to doing memories and my old gratitude, which takes up less room than the snippets that I was doing before, which is why I could kind of reshuffle the order of things. I had missed doing memories. I really do like having it in here. So I will probably keep doing that for at least a couple of months before I decide to do something else again. Gratitude. My Italian is not very strong, let's put it that way. It took a lot of effort for me to do gratitude. I also had been doing lettered gratitude and snippets for so long that going back to this style of gratitude, I would find myself starting to write about my day rather than writing about gratitude. So that was kind of tough. And at some point near the end of the month, I kind of just switched back to English. You know, sometimes experiments don't work the way that you would like them to. Then reading, I actually got a ton of reading done in August. I even needed to do an overflow spread, so I have page threading here for the overflow, tracker, habits, and money goals again. And then continuing on as normal, the new library loan spread. So these I did mark that I migrated because I still actually had the books or ebooks on hold, so I wanted to mark that I hadn't actually returned them. So I did mark that they were migrated and then checked off the bottom of the page. Oh, just kidding. This was actually a watercolor weekly. So I did another watercolor weekly, but you can see it's been a while. And this one, I really like this one. I wanted to do some little roses. I did not intend to do like a tic-tac-toe thing, but that's just kind of the way it ended up. Don't know why. This was my first YouTube kind of planning mind map for different series and videos that I wanted to do, and my first editorial calendar, which this thing was super handy for August because I was posting 2 times a week. This was a massive mess up, so I just covered a sticker and flipped the page and did it correctly. So this was when Riccardo of the Boosted Journal came to visit me in my town, and so I had some things that we wanted to do and all that kind of stuff. Brain dump page. And then continuing on with dailies. This is my first YouTube workflow spread, which this thing is amazing. I have a new one set up in a different journal now because this really, really helped me keep on track and on top of everything. These, so Planning with Kay sent me some stickers and I used them to set up my weekly, and 1, they're super cute, and 2, even though my setup is pretty fast, this was even faster. I really like how this particular week came out. This was a spread that I made from one of the prompts from Walking in This World. Let's see, lettering, so I had some extra space. I had a couple more stickers left, so I did my little days of the week over here, and then the rest is just my stuff because I didn't have any more stickers to use for that. This was my overflow for my reading list for August. Overflow for my YouTube tracker, so I did do page threading on there as well. I did a brain dump of ideas for some social media stuff, some projects I'd like to work on, all that kind of stuff. I have my make, print, and laminate spread, which is for work and like teaching stuff, and I actually have done a new version of this in my new bullet journal where I kind of have streamlined the process and made it so it's just on one page rather than a full spread. And then it was the end of summer, so I have back to school and la rentrée, which is just back to school in French. And I decided to have fun with some watercoloring. And I had my transition back to full 2-page weeklies. I also did, I'm doing a very new to me weekly setup. So this was actually inspired by Greenish Planning, and she was inspired by various other people, and I just kind of took the overall look and made it my own. So I did go back to doing my mini monthly calendar, which I had stopped doing when I was doing my 1-page weekly because I just didn't have space for it. So I did go back to doing that. And then in the center, I have all the days of the week, and I've been using a 2-color system so that I have all the days of the week in one color and all of my extra boxes. So the other tasks that I have to do are in the second color. So I've got tasks, home, university, work, and the upcoming week. So this was the first week back, so I wasn't quite back to full schedule, so I'm kind of still playing around with that, but so far this is working really well. And then just standard dailies, full steam ahead. This was a really bad watercolor experiment I did. Sometimes the pages kind of get a little glued together and they're like really, it's kind of weird. So I didn't actually want to write on this one because of the way the pages were. So I decided to just do some watercolor and then skip and do my dailies on the next one. That was really the only reason for that. This was, once I had started going back to work, I was getting super busy. I had a lot of stuff to go on, so I have some very long dailies coming up here. And then that is the end of the dailies in here. So I knew I was going to have some pages left over because I didn't have enough room to do September in here, but I, still had a couple extra pages. So I do have 1 page and 1 spread that are blank, but aside from my very end of journal collections, I decided to go ahead and do some various like art and lettering and that kind of stuff. So I was playing around with my watercolor roses, doing different things. Honestly, for no particular reason, I just did it, and then I found a quote about roses and was just practicing lettering. You can tell I did not even space this out. Like, this should have been up higher. This is really squished. It was just to kind of play around. And I also was doing some more watercolor lettering. I've been trying to practice my general cursive, and I got the handwriting practicing charts that are in Boho Berry's tribe. Because I like the style of cursive she has. It's, kind of classic, but has some more modern twists to some of the letters. So I like how that works. And I was trying to actually do cursive with a water brush, which you can tell some of them failed desperately. But so just kind of a practice page. And then I also was doing various poems, taking various poems that I like and trying to practice my cursive with them. So I did use, I believe this was my Kaweko fountain pen. This is my Lammy. So this is one of my favorite Emily Dickinson poem I like by Shel Silverstein. This is my Pilot Metropolitan. So this is my absolute favorite poem by Emily Dickinson. So I did it with bigger to practice, and then I tried doing smaller, more like normal sized cursive down here. And I tried to do a watercolor to illustrate my poem, and I had a thing in mind for these waves, and it honestly just did not work. Also, I'm terrible at mixing watercolors, so that was not the color I was going for. But you know what? It's kind of whatever. It was just kind of playing at the back of my journal. And once again, with watercolors and watercolor lettering and all that kind of stuff. I did a collection for the gray inks. So I actually got a gray ink sampler from Goulet Pens, and I've been using them in my pens, but part of the problem is that sometimes I don't remember which ones I've used or which ones I liked or whatever. So I decided to make a running list of the inks and then my thoughts about them, so that if I want to maybe order a bottle of it in the future, I know which ones I really liked and which ones I was kind of meh on. So definitely my favorite was the Pilot Iroshizuku Fuyusyogen, which I want to say is like, the English title is like Old Man Gray or something like that, but it's this gorgeous like periwinkle gray. Definitely my favorite. And then the silver gray from Detrimentus was really cool too. So this one is actually on the perforated page. I might actually tear this out and put it in the back pocket of whatever bullet journal I'm currently using, just so I have this on hand so I can kind of keep adding to it. So that's why I actually did not write on the back of this page, so that I could take this out of the notebook. Just have to do that still. I have a little, spread for places I want to go and see in France, because sometimes like my mom or friends or I will read an article or somebody will send me an article and I'll say, oh, that'd be really cool to go to. And then I'll forget whenever I'm trying to think of, places I want to go to. So I decided to make a little spread here. I have to figure out how I want to deal with this in my new bullet journal. I don't know if I want to make a spread in my collection. I don't know if I want to make a spread in my collection bullet journal and then just transfer the information so I don't have to keep transferring it every time I move bullet journals. But for now, it at least is somewhere, so I can deal with it later. This was a couple private pages, and then this was the new bullet journal setup, 4th bullet journal review. Oops, skipped one. My new bullet journal to-do list. This was a pen test and video ideas, and I actually cut the bottom off of this page because I decided after I had set up my 5th bullet journal that I wanted to do a new color code, so I just cut out a piece of paper and taped it over and did my new color code, so that's why he's missing his little bottom. So video ideas, YouTube, and that is the end. This was actually the first bullet journal that I didn't do my measuring lines on the very last page, because I kind of know the size of this journal now, and I've got it in other journals, so I can kind of refer to it if I need to, but it was nice to have this last page to actually do a collection with. And then, in the back here, oops, I have a little note from when Kayla sent me stuff and a business card. So sometimes I will leave things in this back pocket if they're things I no longer need but I want to hold on to. I'll just kind of put them back here and forget about them, and then if I need them, I know where to look for them. But yeah, that is my 4th bullet journal. I know you guys have seen a lot of this as I do my monthly flip-throughs, but I thought you guys might like to see everything all at once. I do like to use all of the pages in my bullet journal, and it does kind of bug me that I have that one page and one spread that are blank, but I also don't know what to put there, so I'd rather just leave them blank than do something random. But yeah, this was my 4th bullet journal, my 5-month bullet journal. It's kind of crazy. So if you guys have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them down below, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.